There are so many relationships that I lost out on, so many potential partnerships even that I lost out on because I was insecure and I was trying to mask my insecurity with arrogance. But it wasn't a loud arrogance, right? Fake humility. It was disgusting. And I know you're probably judging me right now, right? But no, don't take it on me. I want you to point the lens inward. Right? Think about that for yourself. When you go into social settings, are you retreating because you're insecure? Are you retreating because, oh, I feel awkward around people? And do you feel awkward around people? Or do you just don't like the parts of yourself? And are you afraid that people will see the parts that you think are there that you don't like and you don't want them to see it? Do you not like certain parts of yourself and you dread other people finding them out about you? Or maybe you've gone through a specific situation, maybe in your childhood or wherever, where you felt like people rejected you for whatever reason. You were being your authentic self. They rejected it. They pushed it away. That rejection that you received, you learned in that moment, don't be your authentic self. Don't show up as your full self. Show up as something different. Or matter of fact, for some of you, it's don't show up at all. Family, I don't think that you have social anxiety. I think you're deeply insecure. But let me explain what I mean. Hello, family, and welcome back to the Bastion of Critical Thinking. My name is Raven, thought leader, therapist, and theologian. And once again, I am always so happy to have you here with me. If you're new here, welcome. Welcome. Have a seat, take a load off, if you will, and get comfortable, because what we do around here in the Bastion is talk through things that are more difficult within culture and society and faith, and we talk through ways to reform them. We critique them first, right? But we offer ways to reform because we never want to offer criticisms without offering a hand up instead, or in addition to. So anyway, with that in mind, if you like that kind of content, like, comment, and subscribe, and have a seat, and let's talk, right? So today I'm going to be in my therapist bag a bit because I want to address some things that I've been noticing, some trends, if you will, that I've been noticing in my sessions that have made me come to some conclusions that I wanted to share, because I'm seeing they've kind of morphed into themes that I've been seeing more recently, so I want to share. And that is essentially about loneliness and isolation. And obviously, if you're not living under a rock, you know that loneliness and isolation is such a major theme right now in culture, largely because of social media and our technological advancements that we've made in culture. We're becoming increasingly isolated because we're inundated in our own personal stimulants, right? And we have our own algorithms that keep us hyper-focused on the things outside of anything external. All we have to do is go inside and be cozied up in all of our algorithms that feed our biases, that feed our joys and our pains and all of the things. So that's been perpetuating the loneliness, but it's not just social media. I know people like to say that, but if you do the reading, you'll recognize that this has been a consistent theme that's been kind of happening within culture, or a shift rather, that's been happening in culture since around the 50s and 60s, right? It still does have everything to do with the ways that we've advanced in our culture and our society. We've become less and less of a collectivist society. We never really kind of were, especially relatively speaking, but we're becoming less and less collectivist and more individualist, more centered around the individual rather than the family, rather than the group. And that just is evident. And remember, like even in the 90s and the early 2000s, we would go to the mall and we would all kind of congregate in groups with each other, and we would go to the mall to be amongst other people. Now all of a sudden malls became dead, right? These dead centers. Or I mean, I can think of a ton of examples of like where we would, churches or religious communities, people would have religious practices that would require them to come and join together in groups. That's on the decline as well. So there are so many examples of us just reducing our time together and really, really honing in on our time as individuals and by ourselves. Marriage rates on the decline. I mean, again, we can go through all of the reasons and all the ways, all the examples. Nonetheless, my point in mentioning this is, as a result of that, more and more people are starting to feel like they have social anxiety, and they're beginning to struggle with how to be social and how to be in social settings. And the way that it's showing up is retreating from social settings, right? And retreating from the opportunities to get to know people and to become deeply engaged and even be vulnerable with people. you can make the case that like, well, what's the big deal? We're advancing and who cares? But guys, that creates real problems because humans are designed to be in community. Like our inclinations are to be with someone else. Matter of fact, I'll even go as far as to say we don't know ourselves outside of being in community with other people. The second you retreat from them, then you go into these silos and these self-affirming prophecies about yourself. And it becomes just this insulated echo chamber of, well, this is what I think and this is why I think it, so obviously this is right. You're just affirming all these biases that already exist within yourself. So I actually think that that's really dangerous. So that's the more fundamental reason why that's a problem. But the other reason it's a problem is because what those echo chambers then create is a lot of social upheaval and unrest, because when people are consistently in these echo chambers, then they believe that they're right. And so what happens when they're being fed things that aren't right and that are actually deeply detrimental and harmful for themselves and those around them? Then you get murder rates that are on the rise, and then you get school shootings, and then you get people shooting at malls and public spaces, or you get people like Andrew Tate's, right? And the people who are super anti-women or even anti-men, right? You get people that feel it appropriate to denigrate and think less of outside people or people that don't think like them. And then you get these echo chambers, you get these people rather that come together and they plan to do harm, and often do harm on the larger parts of society, because they were fed these messages that basically validated all the things that they already felt, and they were just in this echo chamber by themselves. So there are a lot of personal and collective consequences and dangers towards this trend of isolation. Now, the reason I feel like this is necessary to bring up in a video about social anxiety and debunking the myths that you have social anxiety is because what happens when you're in these echo chambers is that the thoughts that you have about yourself are just reaffirmed. But again, what happens when those thoughts that you have about yourself aren't positive? You have these thoughts, and then you cement them, and then because they're cemented, now you believe that they're fact. And because you believe that these things are facts, when you go into social settings, you immediately project your thoughts onto what everybody else is thinking about you in that room, because you've already cemented these thoughts about yourself as fact. And so now when you go into rooms and maybe, let's say, somebody looks at you a little strange, or a way that's unfamiliar for you, or a way that maybe just triggers something that you already have within yourself, then immediately all of those self-affirmed biases that you've already developed, or those facts, right, that you developed about yourself, they're just exacerbated. And then when you leave and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, because of course they thought that about me. Of course they were saying that I was doing too much in the room, because because that's just the truth. I do too much, and I know that I do too much. You won't say that. You'll say, oh, they felt like I was doing too much, so I just pulled back. Did they feel like you were doing too much, or do you already feel that about yourself? And so when you go into the rooms, you already project that onto people. Right? So are you uncomfortable around those people because they think these things about you, or because you think these things about you? And so you hear them. So when you go into rooms where other people are, that's the first thing you see. That's the first thing you're hearing, even if that's not what you hear at all, even if that's not what you see at all. So is it your insecurities that makes it difficult for you to go into spaces? Is it the things that you've already established about yourself in your mind that make it difficult for you to go into spaces? Or is it what people are actually thinking? I'll give you a quick story. I did the same thing. I used to think all the time, and y'all know, because clearly I just talk for 20, 30 minutes at a time on this channel. I used to think I talk too much, and that I'm too deep, and that people don't like deep things, and people don't like depth, right? People don't like super smart people. People like more down to earth people. That was what I used to think all the time. And so guess what happened? I developed that into a fact about who I am. I was too much. And then I would go into rooms and I would dismiss myself, or I would lessen who I am, because I just perceived that people didn't want to be around somebody like that, who was extra and deep and talked too much. And there was also times, and that would have been cool if it was just me, but then it went a step further, and I used to think that everybody was jealous of me. The foolishness, right? I used to think everybody was jealous of me, or everybody was talking about me, or would be reflecting when I would leave the room about how extra and annoying I was because I talked too much, or I went too deep with things. I wouldn't just have simple conversations, but I would always try and go philosophically within the conversation and just do too much. I used to internalize that and thought that everybody was jealous of me, or that people didn't want to be my friend because of that, or people treated me differently because of that. When in actuality, all that happened was that because I thought that of myself, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then to the extent that people did maybe treat me a little differently because I was too philosophical, if you will, that was also because I put off that energy, right? I had my guard up because I was expecting people to treat me differently or to not like me for that reason. So I would come in kind of pompous and pretentious and arrogant. I would walk into rooms and be like when people would say something, then I would purposefully try and find the deep angle toward what they said or to what they said so that I can project myself even the more, project my smarts or my intellect even more, or my philosophical mind, because I was insecure. Because I felt like, oh, y'all are not gonna like me anyway. So let me interject myself here more and let me show off even the more, because I was insecure. So, and I would be inundated in my thoughts about what they're thinking. Even like I would do that to try and project confidence, and even still, child, I would be in those moments still thinking like, I wonder what they think. Did that sound? Did it work? I hope they don't. I hope they don't dislike me. Man, I really don't want to be this way. I don't actually want people to dislike me, but I have to because they gonna think that I'm this, or people are dumb, or people are shallow, or people aren't smart like me. Just foolishness, pure, unadulterated foolishness. And there were so many. When I think back on it, there are so many relationships that I lost out on. So many potential partnerships even that I lost out on because I was insecure, and I was trying to mask my insecurity with arrogance. But it wasn't a loud arrogance, right? Fake humility. It was disgusting. And I know you're probably judging me right now, right? But no, don't take it on me. I want you to point the lens inward, right? Think about that for yourself. When you go into social settings, are you retreating because you're insecure? Are you retreating because, oh, I feel awkward around people? And do you feel awkward around people? Or do you just don't like the parts of yourself? And are you afraid that people will see the parts that you think are there that you don't like, and you don't want them to see it? You know what I mean? I want you to really think about that. Do you not like certain parts of yourself and you dread other people finding them out about you? Or maybe you've gone through a specific situation, maybe in your childhood or wherever, where you felt like people rejected you for whatever reason, and it was a part of you that you were being your authentic self. They rejected it, they pushed it away, and however they did it, and so now that rejection that you received, you learned in that moment, don't be your authentic self. Don't show up as your full self. Show up as something different. Or matter of fact, for some of you, it's don't show up at all. Forget it altogether. So are you approaching social settings and social situations, relationships, with that level of insecurity? With feelings of rejection, with fears of rejection, rather? How are you showing up in social settings? You're looking at the awkwardness, right? You're looking at the monikers that culture has given us and this therapy speak that we've developed in culture. You're looking at the moniker that they've given us, and you're judging yourself based off of that. But that's too abstract. Let's go deeper. What are you bringing to those social settings that make it awkward, right? What are you bringing to those social settings that make it that uncomfortable for you? And then after you assess that, then assess, what do you think about you? Because the more comfortable you are with who you are, the more easy it is to go into social settings and not necessarily care how you're being perceived. But so long as you're questioning yourself, then that'll always make you question how you look and how you show up and what they're thinking. You got to get comfortable with you, so that way that what people are thinking doesn't necessarily matter. Not that people's perspectives about us don't matter, because we live in fishbowls, right? We are communal people. So how we show up in social settings does matter, but I guess I just mean you're not hyper obsessed with it. But instead, when you show up fully yourself and fully okay with yourself, you instead are intrigued by other people, and you're curious about other people because you feel good. You're good over here. So like, tell me about you. Say more about yourself. What are you working on? What you got going? What are you interested in? What movies are you watching, right? When you make it less about yourself, then it makes it easier to engage with other people. But you can't do that until you feel good about who you are. With that in mind, what I want you to take away from this session, if you will, maybe we'll start calling them that. When I get in my therapist bags, we'll start calling these moments sessions. What I want you to come away from this session with, fam, is that take away all these labels. When you remove, okay, maybe you do have social anxiety, whatever, I'll give it to you. If that's what you've been diagnosed with, cool. But what do you think about yourself? If you're gonna concede to that diagnosis, what do you think about yourself? Now I want you to approach it with how I show up, who I am. Do I like it? Do I dislike it? What things do I think need to be changed? What ways am I being too hard on myself? Because that's another one. Y'all have all these barometers and it's like, but baby, you haven't even looked at XYZ that you do really, really well. How do you show up and how do you like who you are? Let that be where you start when you're trying to address your social anxiety. Don't just accept the fact that, oh, I'm just awkward, I just suck at it. I know we've developed this aesthetic of the awkward black girl. I know that's the era that we're in now. And I get it. I'm not fighting back against it. I get it. I know it. Oftentimes we felt like we had to be these boss baddies for so long. And I'm talking not just to women, but in general. I know that people have developed those monikers for so long that it's made it difficult for people to just exist, maybe in the gray. And so when Issa Rae came out with that awkward black girl moniker, it felt validating for some people. I get it. But you're not just awkward though. There are reasons why people feel awkward. And it's because it's a lot of self-doubt oftentimes underneath awkwardness. So what I want you to do is gauge, why am I doubting myself so much? Why don't I feel comfortable with exactly how I said it and what I said, no matter how it's received? Okay? Think about that. Are you socially awkward or do you have social anxiety? Or do you just have low self-esteem? Do you struggle with security? Think about it. And write down in the comments what you think. And I want to push back if I'm wrong. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me if this resonates. I think this is fun. Being in the therapist bag. I want to lean into this a little bit harder. And tell me if you're interested in more content like this, guys. But in the meantime, I love you so much. I hope you have an amazing week. And yeah, like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with somebody that you know struggles a bit with social anxiety and feels as though they don't do well with people. We need people, so that's not going to be the answer. So share this with them and let's have a conversation. And if you want to talk more deeply, or even if you want to join in on a session, maybe I am a therapist. So you can go to my Instagram page, or you can actually go to my website, ravenrenee.com, and you can reach out to me there and let's talk. But until next time, guys, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.